All right, we've finally gotten to a pivotal moment in this series. Let's talk about Disclaimer, episode 4. Hey everyone, it's David Starr from Watcher Pass. I'm here to talk about Disclaimer, episode 4, titled 4, Roman 4. It is the 4th episode, as you imagine, in this limited series. It is coming to Apple TV Plus on October 18th, 2024, the same day as episode 3. I did not realize that until the night before, so I am scrambling to get this up. But we get 2 episodes this week, just like last week. After this, it's a more traditional 1 episode a week release schedule. But what an episode 4 is. This series has been really good. It's been fantastic throughout. Episode 4 is no exception. I loved it. My hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. It has some more backstory, a pivotal moment, and something that I liked, a little bit more cruelty from the characters. So I'm going to tell you a little about the episode, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this episode, you probably don't. There are some big surprises that happen here. I would turn it off when I get to the recap. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler-free and let you know when you get to those spoilers. So remember, episode 3 ended where we saw the Catherine and Joinathan romance affair start. And we saw the aftermath of Stephen and Nancy when they went and had to get their son's body. Joinathan and Catherine's romance was hot, romantic, sexy. Stephen and Nancy's getting the corpse was dark, gloomy, overcast. I loved that contrast. I love the way that episode contrasted like beautiful Italian scenery with like the dark things that were happening. Well, in this episode, we see more of what happened after. We see what happened to Stephen and Nancy after they return and the kind of like spiral that happened there. And we see Joinathan and Catherine's relationship blossom and then take some turns. So, things I liked about this episode. The first, still love the cast. I love the cast. They are all really fantastic. I like how the characters are kind of evolving. I really like some of the changes that some of the characters made in this episode, especially from our friend Robert, who has had a minimal role until recently. He has a much bigger role here. The second thing I love about this episode, love about all the episodes, I love the music. It is so good. It definitely sets the tone perfectly. It definitely contributes to the overall feel of this series, and the music is just perfect throughout. Third thing I loved, kind of a new one. Haven't loved this before. The cruelty. Some of the characters are fairly cruel in this episode as emotions run high, and I like seeing it. I like seeing these character changes. I guess you could also call it the character changes, but I liked the specific cruel aspects of it. So this series definitely has plenty of emotional depth, and this episode is no different. And the last thing I love the ending. It's a very good ending. It definitely kind of like is a moment we've all been waiting for, and we finally get it. So I know I said I would go over things I didn't like. There really wasn't anything I didn't like. I really love the series. It is so, so good. So I definitely think you should check it out. Check if you haven't seen Disclaimer yet, catch up quickly. There are 3 episodes left, and you have some time. It's 1 a week from here on out. So hurry up, catch up, see all these 4 episodes so you can be ready next week. And if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So I think I'll work kind of backwards chronologically because Joinathan and Catherine's is the most meaty story. So I will end with them. Stephen and Nancy, I'll go with them second. But first, let's start with our friends Katherine and Robert in the present. So Katherine and Robert are both very distracted at work. At Catherine's work, she is thinking about everything that's happening. She's thinking about what Stephen Brigstock wants. And Catherine's assistant, remember, Catherine asked her assistant or this other reporter to look into Stephen Brigstock and to find more information about him. Well, the reporter comes and's like, hey, I was looking further and I found some more information. And Catherine's like, no, stop. There's no story there. Just drop it. And it's a very weird turn, but I mean, Catherine doesn't want any more information to be found out about Stephen Brigstock because that might lead to more rabbit holes and might have her get discovered. So she tells her assistant she tells this reporter to stop digging into the story. And also, she's kind of unraveling at work. She is distracted. She's being a little erratic. And as you can imagine, she has a lot on her mind. Well, Robert also has a lot on his mind. He is super distracted at work also. So he is trying to listen to meetings, but all he's thinking about is like the affair and what happened and, Catherine like being with this person and like Nicholas. He starts thinking like, well, Nicholas was there. Did he hear anything? Did he oversee anything? Robert is just very distracted in all of that. So None of them are doing well at their jobs. Catherine then visits a local bookshop, and it's that bookshop that we saw in episode 3, the bookshop owned by Claire, that Stephen went to drop off plenty of copies of his book, put up some displays, and also agreed to do a reading there. Well, it turns out this is like Catherine's local bookstore, as we kind of thought. And so when Catherine gets there, she sees The Perfect Stranger on display all over, and she kind of just leaves in a panic. Now, and in the same timeline, Stephen is talking to his friend, the friend that helped him publish Perfect Stranger, and he says he's getting ready to start a new novel. And one of the characters is a teenage boy, and he wants to create a Facebook page for him. And his friend's like, that's real weird. Like, that's kind of creepy. And Stephen's like, no, I'm not creepy. I'm just trying to like understand these crazy teens and what they're doing. It's very creepy. I'm going to speculate later why he wants to do this, but it is very creepy. Now, meanwhile, Catherine finally comes home after, kind of being surprised at the bookstore and sees Robert and Nicholas there talking and eating and hanging out. And Robert's like, hi, Nick has come to keep me company while you're gone away. You're going to leave for a couple months for this huge story. So essentially, Robert is kicking her out, but doesn't want to like specifically tell Nick. So he's telling Nicholas that Catherine is going to work on a story for a few months. He then calls her a cab for the airport. When Catherine goes upstairs, she finds that her luggage is already packed, and additionally, her passport and Robert's wedding ring are sitting on like a bench in front of their bed. So seems like Robert is kind of done for now. I mean, we'll see if this sticks, but it seems like Robert is very hurt, and it seems like he is basically kicking Catherine out. After she finds this, after she kind of like breaks down a little bit, she leaves. Robert confronts her as she's leaving about how, she lied to him and whatnot. And then and then he essentially kicks her out in a very gentle way because he doesn't want Nicholas to know. And she gets in the cab. Where is she going to go? We don't know. We'll find out. So Stephen and Nancy, very sad. Nancy is just distraught. It's been like 2 months since they got back, and she like can't do anything. Stephen walks into the bathroom one time and sees her like holding herself underwater in the bathtub, and he like saves her, thinks he's trying to kill herself. She's like, no, I was just trying to feel what he felt. All sorts of downward spiral for Nancy. Now, Nancy also stopped working. I guess she used to work with kids, and now she says she can't work with children anymore because she's so distraught. She just keeps getting worse, and eventually she refuses to go out and kind of neglects everything. And eventually she says that she is going to move into Joinathan's room. So she is just completely disconnected. It seems like she has completely withdrawn and is just like done with this world. Now the house falls into disrepair. The house is a dump. And I'm like, yo, Stephen, like, yeah, it's not good. Very not good that Nancy is not, that Nancy is kind of like in a spiral. You can do the dishes too. Like, it's a lot on you, I'm sure, but you can do the dishes. You can mow the lawn. The house just kind of like falls in disrepair. Stephen is kind of taking care of Nancy. He's like making her meals, but like, dude, just do the dishes and clean up a little bit. It's not going to help her, but maybe it'll help you. He doesn't. Eventually, he's delivering something to her, and he says that it smells awful in there, and we find out that Nancy has cancer. And the next thing we see the funeral. Nancy has died, and the saddest thing is that Stephen and Nancy purchased 2 plots at a cemetery, thinking they would be together. But unfortunately, Joinathan died first, so Joinathan was in one of the plots. Nancy died second, so Nancy's in the other plot. Stephen is going to be somewhere else. So that is a very sad realization for him, and that is the Stephen Nancy story. So now, Joinathan and Catherine. They are continuing their affair. They are still in the throes of passion. And Catherine tells Joinathan that he needs to stay a day longer. He's about to go to Rome, but she says, stay a day longer. She wants them to pretend like they don't know each other for a day and then have wild, passionate sex all night. And in a chilling kind of statement, Joinathan says, well, what if I can't pretend like I don't know you? What if I can't? And she says, then I'll have to kill you. Foreshadowing? I guess so. So the next day, they're at the beach and they, are pretending like they don't know each other. But then Joinathan starts taking pictures of her. Catherine gets into it, and then they go and hook up in the bathroom. Very romantic. Italian bathroom. They hook up. She asks someone to watch Nicholas, and kind of in a foreshadowing moment, they're hooking up in the bathroom. You're like, you've been there for a while. Like, what about poor Nicholas? After they hook up, Joinathan tells her that he's going to come to London, and he says he wants to be with her. He doesn't care that she's married. He wants to be with her, and she says, no, you can't. And he's like, why? She's like, essentially, she doesn't say it this way, but she's like, I have a life. Like, essentially, She has a life in London. She has a husband. She has a child. She has probably a stream of income that she is depending on. She has a lifestyle, right? If you look at their two different Italian lifestyles, Catherine is staying in this like luxury resort, this like beautiful hotel. Joinathan is staying in a small, horrible hostel that has flies. So Catherine probably doesn't want to give that up for this passionate lover. She is probably just thinking of this as a fling that she will then go back to her regular life. Joinathan is like in the throes. He wants to be with Catherine. When she says you can't, he's like, you don't have to, you can stay with your husband for a while. Eventually, we'll be together. And Catherine, I think, starts thinking like, okay, this is not going to work. She is kind of like this person is now going to be an issue for her. So Joinathan says, I'm still coming. Like, I already booked my ticket to London. And she says no. And then she kind of like goes back to check on Nicholas. She goes back to check on Nicholas. He's fine. He's like playing in a blow up raft on the sand, and she says, "I'm gonna go get some sleep." And she tries to sleep, but she's kind of like I think going through the scenarios now. She's worried about what happened because remember, like Joinathan and her have hooked up. Joinathan took pictures of her earlier when they were hooking up. Joinathan took those pictures that we all saw later, and so Joinathan is like very much in love with her. Young, brash, and has evidence. Not going to be good for Catherine. So eventually she does fall asleep and she wakes up and the kind of tides have turned. There's wind, there's rough seas, and she looks out of the beach and sees Nicholas in his little blow up raft out in the ocean. He must have like gone out there to just play and the current took him out. He's too far out for her to get, and so she yells for help. Joinathan gets up and runs out to help him. He swims out to the boat, grabs it, and starts towing Nicholas in. But the current's rough. He is not like he's a good swimmer, but he's not like a crazy strong swimmer, and so he starts to have trouble. Now, other people see this and they go out to help. Two others go out, they grab the boat, they pull Nicholas in, but in the whole like craziness, they don't think about Joinathan. Joinathan is still out there. He's struggling. And so everyone's focused on Nicholas. Everyone's focused on getting him back. And no one thinks about Joinathan. Now, Nicholas comes back. He's cold. He's wet. Catherine like wraps him in a towel and like holds him. And while everyone is like gathering around to make sure she's okay, she looks out and she sees Joinathan out in the water. And he's struggling. He's like, trying to get attention. And Catherine like coldly looks at him and just like says nothing. So she thinks everything is fine. Like this will solve all my problems. She has a problem now because Joinathan is in love with her. He has evidence. He is going to go to London. I'm sure eventually he would have probably tried to convince her to go with him. Maybe he would have gotten angry and told her husband all sorts of problems that Catherine doesn't want to deal with. Well, now she doesn't have to because he is drowning. But unfortunately for her, other people see that he is drowning and they go out to help him. They get this like cool Italian float boat and get out there. When they get out there, Joinathan has just gone under. So one of them dives in, takes a bit, but he finds Joinathan, pulls him up. They take him back to shore. But unfortunately he's not breathing. And so one of them, the one that like got him, starts giving him CPR. And he gives him CPR for like 30 seconds. And then the other guy is like, no, it's too late. There's nothing you can do. I'm like, give him for a little bit more CPR maybe. And also they don't clear his lungs. He has water in his lungs. I'm pretty sure you have to like try to clear the lungs before you do CPR or else it's not going to work because you're just blowing water back into the lungs as you're trying to pump. They don't do any of that. Joinathan doesn't revive. Joinathan is dead. And after Joinathan is dead, Catherine picks up Nicholas and walks away in just the coldest manner possible. So that is how this episode ends. That is the event we have been waiting for, the culmination to figure out what happened to Joinathan, what this accident was, and how he saved her son. Well, now we know he went out to save Nicholas, who had gone out in the water. He got left out there. He struggled. He eventually drowned, and Catherine contributed to that. So that is Disclaimer, Season 1, Episode 4. So what do we think is going to happen next? Well, I assume this is probably the last of the Catherine Joinathan timeline. Maybe we'll see one more quick glimpse of them as she like packs up her stuff. Maybe she tries to like get the film from his room, but they don't let her. Something like that. But this is probably the last of the kind of like flashback scenes we'll see. We'll probably all now focus on the present and In the present, we have Katherine and Robert and Stephen. Now, I assume Katherine will find a hotel or something and live out of that while she does her work and also tries to like figure out what Stephen wants. I assume that that is going to be a big part of this. I don't know what Robert's gonna do. Robert maybe will do his own investigation, try to figure out what Stephen wants, and maybe try to get some more information. But what does Stephen want with this Facebook page? Well, I assume he's going to make some sort of teenage account, maybe like a teenage account for Joinathan Brigstock, maybe, and then start harassing Katherine over Facebook. I did love that he said Facebook. It shows how old Stephen is. He wants to make a Facebook to be like the kids these days. Apparently, Facebook is not hip with the kids, so he probably should have made, I don't know, what do kids use? Instagram, I guess, TikTok, one of those things. But in any event, I assume he's going to make a Facebook, probably for like Joinathan Brigstock, and then start harassing Katherine from this anonymous, anonymous account. That would be my guess. I guess we'll find out next episode. But that is Disclaimer Season 1, Episode 4. I definitely think you should watch. I think you should watch this whole series. It's been fantastic. And if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.